Hello and welcome. This is Notibot. Tonight, we're bringing you a critical update on the escalating tensions in the Middle East, with the US-Iran conflict taking center stage. President Donald Trump has issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warns that a prolonged war could divert critical support from his country. We'll break down the latest developments, from the ultimatum to the potential impact on Ukraine's war efforts. Stay with us for a comprehensive recap of the day's top news. As tensions between the US and Iran escalate, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warns that a prolonged conflict could significantly impact global support for Ukraine. Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, has expressed concern that a prolonged US-Israeli war on Iran could divert critical support from Ukraine. In an exclusive interview with the Associated Press, Zelensky stated that a long conflict in Iran could lead to a decrease in America's support for Ukraine, as Washington's global priorities shift. This comes as Ukraine struggles to receive the critically needed Patriot air defense missiles to counter Russia's daily barrages. Ukraine desperately needs these systems, as Russia's relentless pounding of urban areas has killed thousands of civilians and targeted Ukraine's energy supply to disrupt industrial production. The situation is further exacerbated by Russia's denial of civilians' heat and running water during the winter months. Zelensky emphasized that Ukraine is not a priority for Washington at present, highlighting the risks of a prolonged war in Iran diverting attention away from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The situation is complex, with Zelensky acknowledging that Ukraine is in contact with U.S. negotiators about a potential deal to end the war. However, even these discussions reflect a broader loss of focus from Ukraine. The Ukrainian president urged Americans to recognize the gravity of the situation in Ukraine, stressing the need for stronger security guarantees. The US-Israeli war in Iran is a pressing concern, with the latest talks between Moscow and Kyiv ending in February without a breakthrough. As the situation in Ukraine continues to deteriorate, Zelensky's words serve as a stark reminder of the precarious nature of the conflict and the need for international support. Following a series of escalating tensions in the region, US President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Iran, prompting a swift international response. Here's the script for the 10 to 12-minute news summary. US President Donald Trump has issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, warning that if Tehran does not meet Washington's demands, all hell will break down on the country. Trump made the statement on his social media platform Truth Social, where he also claimed that the US can open the Strait of Hormuz and take the oil and make a fortune if Iran complies with its demands. The tensions between the US and Iran began in February when the US and Israel launched a joint offensive on Iran, killing over 1,340 people, including the country's then Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Since then, Tehran has retaliated with drone and missile strikes targeting Israel, Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military assets. Iran has also restricted the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway for global oil supplies. The U.S. has been demanding that Iran meet its obligations under the 2015 nuclear deal, which was negotiated by the U.S. and other world powers. The deal imposed limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for economic sanctions relief. However, the U.S. withdrew from the deal in 2018 and has since been pressuring Iran to comply with its pre-deal commitments. The situation is highly volatile, with the U.S. and Iran engaging in a series of threats and warnings. The 48-hour ultimatum from Trump is the latest development in a rapidly deteriorating crisis. If Iran fails to meet the U.S. demands, the consequences could be severe, with the U.S. potentially imposing further sanctions and taking other measures to pressure the country. Following a tense standoff in the Middle East, U.S. President Trump has issued a stark ultimatum to Iran, with significant implications for global energy markets. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned Iran that it has 48 hours to resolve the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, where a U.S. Navy aircraft has been shot down, killing the crew. Iran has rejected Trump's ultimatum, saying it will not be intimidated by U.S. threats. The incident has sparked a tense standoff between the U.S. and Iran, with both sides accusing each other of aggression. The U.S. has been conducting military operations in the region, including the deployment of additional troops and equipment, in an effort to deter Iranian aggression. Iran has responded by firing missiles at U.S. forces in Iraq and conducting naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has accused Iran of carrying out the downing of the aircraft, which was on a routine mission. The incident has significant implications for global oil supplies and the security of the region. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important waterways for oil exports, and any disruption to its operation could have far-reaching consequences. The U.S. has a long-standing commitment to the security of the region, and any perceived Iranian aggression is seen as a threat to this commitment. The situation remains volatile, with both sides refusing to back down. The U.S. and Iran are still in talks, but the fate of the downed airmen and the stability of the region remain uncertain. As the global attention shifts to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, concerns are growing about its potential impact on Ukraine's ongoing struggle. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed concern that a prolonged U.S.-Israeli war on Iran could erode America's support for Ukraine. In an exclusive interview with the Associated Press, Zelensky stated that a long war in Iran could shift Washington's global priorities, leaving Ukraine with reduced deliveries of critically needed Patriot air defense missiles. Ukraine desperately needs these systems to counter Russia's daily barrages, which have killed thousands of civilians and targeted Ukraine's energy supply to disrupt industrial production. Zelensky's concerns come as the latest U.S.-brokered talks between envoys from Moscow and Kyiv ended in February with no sign of a breakthrough. Ukraine remains in contact with U.S. negotiators about a potential deal to end the war, but Zelensky believes these discussions reflect a broader loss of focus from Ukraine. His immediate concern is the Patriots, essential for intercepting Russian ballistic missiles, as Ukraine still lacks an effective alternative. Zelensky's comments highlight the complex web of global conflicts that can impact Ukraine's struggle against Russia. The situation in Ukraine serves as a reminder of the ongoing human cost of the war, with thousands of civilians killed and injured and millions displaced. The global response to Ukraine's crisis has been shaped by shifting priorities and competing interests, leaving the country vulnerable to reduced support from its allies. As the situation in Ukraine continues to unfold, it is essential to understand the intricate dynamics at play and the potential consequences for those affected. We now turn to a development in the ongoing Ukraine conflict, as a key European leader calls on the EU to reconsider its stance on Russian energy imports. Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, has called on the European Union to lift sanctions on Russian oil and gas imports. Fico made the statement after a call with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, saying that the EU should renew dialogue with Russia to get missing gas and oil supplies from all sources, including Russia. This move is seen as a departure from the EU's stance on Russia, as Hungary and Slovakia are the only two member states that maintain relations with Moscow. The call comes as oil prices surge due to the ongoing war in Iran. The U.S. and Israel launched their war on Iran on February 28, disrupting oil shipments from the Gulf and creating the biggest oil supply disruption in history. The International Energy Agency has warned of severe energy shortages if the situation doesn't improve. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has also been making moves to leverage his country's wartime expertise on the international stage. He met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Istanbul on Saturday, announcing greater security cooperation between the two countries. Zelensky said that Turkey would continue to support negotiations between Ukraine and Russia to end their war, which stalled after the outbreak of war in the Gulf. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are expected to travel to Kyiv in April as part of efforts to revive peace talks with Russia. Ukrainian President's top aide Kirilo Budanov confirmed that Kushner, Witkoff, and U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham would attend the meeting, which could take place shortly after Orthodox Easter on April 12. Following a shocking statement from a top Iranian diplomat, concerns over radioactive fallout's impact on the region's capital cities have reached a boiling point. Today, we're looking at the latest developments in the escalating tensions between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. On Saturday, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made a statement that shed light on the motivations behind recent airstrikes on Iran's Bushehr nuclear plant. The U.S. and Israel launched a joint offensive against Iran on February 28, resulting in the deaths of over 1,340 people, including former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Since then, Tehran has retaliated with drone and missile strikes targeting Israel, as well as Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military assets. Arachi's statement emphasized that the recent airstrikes on the Bushehr nuclear plant, which killed one person, were not aimed at Tehran but at the GCC capitals. He pointed out that the international community's reaction to the attack near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine was the same as what would occur if the US and Israel had targeted the GCC capitals with radioactive fallout. This statement suggests that Arachi believes the real objectives behind the attacks are not necessarily to target Iran itself, but to cause widespread destruction in the region and create a sense of chaos. The Iranian foreign minister also highlighted the impact of these attacks on regional stability and the lives of innocent civilians. The situation remains volatile, with ongoing tensions between Iran and the US, Israel, and other Gulf countries. The international community is watching closely as the situation continues to unfold. And that's the way it is for today. Thank you for joining us for this evening's news recap. I'm your name, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest news updates, and follow us on social media for breaking news alerts. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and we'll be back with more news soon.